In the penalty box, that's what Dan Ives of Wedbush has to say. Here's the quote from him. The overall iPhone 14 demand story for Apple is steady, but clearly not the home run success out of the gates, as consumers are not paying up for the base model in a softer macro environment. I'm pleased to say that Dan joins us right now. Dan, last time we spoke, and it wasn't too long ago, you said so far demand and orders for iPhone 14 are tracking slightly behind iPhone 13 and are tracking ahead of our expectations out of the gates. Dan, what didn't you see? What went wrong?
Well, I think you really have to separate, as Ed talked about, between iPhone 14 Pro and the base model. Pro continues to track 8 to 10% ahead of iPhone 13. Based on everything we've seen, I think you'll start to see production around that starts to ramp. In terms of the base model, I mean, that's been underwhelming. I mean, that's really the 6 million units, and that's obviously going to be a jolt to the street. But I still believe overall, when you put it all together, the overall demand story with iPhone Pro, that's the key, is better than the street's expecting.
Dan, based on how we're readjusting today and going into earnings in the next month or so, are you expecting then potentially weakness on revenue, but some upside on earnings given a better average selling price?
Yeah, I think the ASPs are so strong on Pro. I mean, the mix shift we think is 85, 90%. So I think that will be enough that we still believe, take out FX a beat in terms of the quarter. In terms of going forward, look, 90 million units, that was the line in the sand. I think the worry that they were actually going to cut 3, 4, 5 million off the 90 million units. And I think as this continues, specifically Pro, if it goes into holiday season, I believe they will start to increase production again, specifically on the Pro.
Dan, when was the last time this company had a real cyclical test for this iPhone? And I don't think the pandemic counts given the fiscal transfers. When's the last real cyclical test this company's had for the iPhone business that we can look back on and see how it performed?
Yeah, you'd have to go to 2016, 2017 in terms of, and there were specific product issues that they were dealing with. But if you go back since the 2007 launch of iPhone, right, just given the ultimate install base now, it's about 1 billion iPhones, they've been able to withstand economic pressures because of that install base, because of the upgrade cycle. And this clearly, for Cook and Cupertino, it's a huge test to see if they can navigate the storm with basically unprecedented things that we haven't seen in some cases since 2009.
Dan, final question. We talked about this last time we spoke. I think it was my final question then. How would you know if you're wrong?
Yeah, the main way we know we're wrong is if we start to see wait times significantly come down for the Pro. We see specifically in China, any sort of weakness going into call it December. If that happens, then the story changes. But for right now, we're not folding on our bullish thesis. It continues to be on Pro, but clearly Apple underestimated on the base model. That's been very disappointing.